page set that up for us, where the big photo op of the evening is on, as well as fancy cars, and a very, very large number of our police force coming in and talking to us. So I'm grateful for those of you who attended. And then we're looking again, we did have coffee with a cop. So we are looking again at the possibility of having some kind of quarterly meeting in person. That went over very well. And a lot of old faces that just don't like to be online were able to communicate with us, and come back and meet and greet and have coffee donated by Roma Cafe and pizza donated by Extreme Pizza. So thanks for those of you who attended that. We had 60 people at the meeting, and many of them, of course, were from our neighboring neighborhood from Santa Fe, but the bulk of them were Point Richmond. So we were happy to see you. So I'm going to move on, and we're going to see if the police, again, when they come, or not. And again, I do apologize. It was my responsibility to reach out, and I always forget, because Lisa did that automatically for so long. So let's go on to Margie. I think that we will combine the treasurer's report and the membership report, because Margie, the treasurer, is out today. So Eric, I think you've got the juicy details.
Sure, thank you. Can you hear me okay? My internet seems a little slow. Okay,
Yep.
good. So good evening, Eric Naprella. Just a couple things to report. In our bank, or within our accounts, we have $21,443.80, of which $3,100 is earmarked for the tunnel sign project. And as far as membership, we've added 5 members since the last time we've met. So we're up to 184 paid and active members. And if you're new here this evening, I just want to say welcome and look forward to meeting and hearing from you. So thank you. That's it, Philip.
Thank you. 5 is actually a lot in a couple of months. I know it sounds like a small number, but we tend to maintain the same amount. And I think that Edie said we have approximately 50 new people on the email list who haven't signed up as members. Is that about right? Ish? You don't have to.
There's 50, and I could pull up a report and give you an idea of how
Okay.
many people that have signed up for the newsletter,
But there's a bunch, right?
like at least a good 10 or 15, not 50.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah, I signed up 10 people.
I think we had a few people at the National Night Out too that signed up.
We signed up 10 people there, and we signed up some off the social media off of Nextdoor. And I signed up, I think, 5 new members using an iPad. We're really sophisticated at the music festival, where we had a booth, and lots of neighbors came by to give us their feedback on things. So we have treasurers, we have membership, we're all good. Now I would like to take a moment to introduce, and it's Asa, right?
Aisha.
I'm sorry, Aisha Canfield. Please introduce yourself, talk a little bit about your company, explain this project, and maybe blow away the smoke about the various different giant $1 million settlements.
Yeah. First of all, I want to thank you all so much for having me. I'm sorry Dr. Lynch is unavailable. I will do my best to represent her well, including fielding questions back to her if I have to. But again, thank you for giving me some of your time tonight. So my name is Aisha Canfield. I am with Series Policy Research. We are based in Oakland, California, and we do a number of things, but some of those things are facilitate community-led processes to move social agendas along on behalf of communities and neighborhoods such as yourself. Most recently, we worked on the Office of Racial Equity and Social Justice in Contra Costa County that some of you might be familiar with. John Joya was instrumental in helping that get passed. But I'm here to talk to you all today about an opportunity we think is really near and dear, literally to your homes and your hearts, and that we'd love for you all to be involved in. So the landscape around Chevron is changing very quickly. And so what I want to talk to you about is a settlement that was recently reached with the Martinez Refining Company and the Bay Area Quality Management District to comply with Rule 65, which is essentially focused on reducing particulate matter emissions from refineries. There was a number of components that were part of the settlement. Some of those were financial. There are hefty fines and penalties that have been put on Chevron, including a $20 million fund that's aimed at financing projects to reduce particulate exposure enrichment. But the piece I want to talk to you about, and I'm sorry I'm not here to talk about where the dollars are going, but eventually, but what I want to talk to you all about today is what we're calling the cap. And the cap was developed as part of the settlement to address longstanding environmental concerns in Richmond and ensure that Chevron's operations align with community health and environmental goals. We really want to make sure that the community has a say in what those health and environmental goals are. We know that Chevron is massive, and it would be very easy for Chevron to decide where it wants to put its efforts. Part of this settlement, though, is ensuring that it really does reflect what the needs and what the expectations and the hopes are of the community. And I say the community, but I also want to acknowledge that Richmond is a really incredibly diverse city. There are lots of neighborhoods, lots of communities, lots of demographics. And so my organization, Ceres, has been working on behalf of Chevron, but also on behalf of the community to ensure that there's a committee that is established that is as representative of Richmond as possible. And so we have put together a committee with folks who were interested. Mr. Rosenthal and I have been working behind the scenes today to make sure that Point Richmond has a seat on that committee to help develop the cap. And so to get into what the cap is, it's a community action plan, and it's a collaborative framework created by Chevron, will be created by Chevron, Richmond community, so folks represented on that committee, and the Bay Area Quality Management District. And it's really to address environmental and community needs with a focus on transparency, accountability, and community engagement. So with these key goals, looking at transparency, we want to provide Richmond residents with easy access to data on air quality, flaring events, and health impacts through a dedicated website and regular updates. I am aware that there is that part of Chevron's website does provide information on flaring and emissions. And we've been really honest, having looked at the website ourselves and gone through trainings on how to use the website ourselves. And the preliminary feedback we've heard from people is that the website is not easily accessible. It's not user-friendly. And unless you are really in that industry, it doesn't really relay what the impacts are of those emissions on our health. And so we really want to work with community members to update that website in a way that makes it accessible and friendly, user-friendly for folks. It's one thing to say what the emissions are, but it doesn't tell us what are the long-term impacts of emissions at 0.05 levels, right, on the body over long term. And so those are the things we really want to be able to improve with the community's feedback. Another key goal, again, speaking of accountability, is establishing clear performance metrics and reporting on incidents to ensure Chevron's operations align with community health and standards. And so really co-developing with the community mechanisms to hold Chevron accountable to meeting the community's needs, the community's expectations, and the goals that we set forth as part of this community access plan. Community action plan. And then community involvement is another part of this settlement, which is hosting biannual meetings and incorporating feedback from residents to ensure the cap evolves to meet the community's needs, right? And so we want to really make sure that there's a feedback loop between the community and Richmond so that so that any community action plan continues to be iterative, adapts to communities' needs. Communities are dynamic, they are evolving, and so are our needs. And we don't want to lock ourselves or Chevron into goals that no longer are relevant and that no longer reflect what the community actually looks like and needs and is asking for. And so we really want to get Chevron in a process of coming into the community. And I know that that's happening with some communities more than others. But we also we really want to hold Chevron accountable to continue to hear from the community as well, so that there's a sort of a two-way education that we think is going to be really important. And so, this CAP plays a really important role in shaping sustainable development in Richmond and really aims to improve long-term health outcomes and reduce environmental impacts. And I want to pause before I keep talking to see if there's any questions, so folks don't lose their questions if they have any so far.
Looks like Michael has a question.
Sure,
Hi, thank you for being here with us.
thank you.
What seems to be a hole in the presentation is that it doesn't say how many people are on this body. You put the sentence in, Chevron shall make the decision. That means it's an advisory body. What happens, does Chevron have 50% of the votes? And how does this work in governance? And what happens if there's a disagreement?
These are really good questions. So I'm coming to you very early in the stages of this. We don't have any governing rules yet. There are 13 to 15 members, and these are folks who we reached out to ask if they were interested. Many are other neighborhood council presidents who are involved. There are other community-based organizations. And so we are hoping, and I think Mr. Rosenthal, I'm hoping you're interested in joining. I'm putting you
Yeah,
on.
Philip, please.
Okay, Philip, excuse me. I was raised in a particular way. So
fine.
we are hoping Philip will join this committee, and the governing structure of this is still to be determined. What the task right now is of this committee is to represent your communities and your community's interests and your community's needs, to provide a preliminary community action plan. And this plan will be presented at a town hall. And I was going to get into details, and I'm happy to put dates and things in the chat if that would be helpful. There will be a town hall with Chevron members present, as well as open to the community and the committee that helps develop the preliminary plan, to share what our initial thinking is around transparency, accountability, and again, ongoing communication. And so that will also be an opportunity for you all to join that town hall and other members of Richmond to provide feedback, right? So we're a small body, we will miss some marks, we will get some things right, but to continue to push ourselves to be as representative and as I would say prescriptive in some ways as possible around this community action plan. We are also wanting folks to come to the town hall, speak up and speak loudly, and and provide some feedback. So I will say that we are sort of beholden to a particular timeline that series my organization is not responsible for, unfortunately. And so we have a town hall that Chevron, because of the settlement, needs to hold in October. And so we had to put this committee together pretty quickly because we did not want Chevron putting together the community action plan just to make the deadline. So this committee is still developing. We've only met once. There will be a second meeting on September 13th. Philip, I hope you can make it. I can send you those details. And where we will start drafting that very first round of that community action plan to be presented at the town hall in October.
Thank you. And just an FYI, I've made a commitment that anything that Aisha sends me, and I've requested it kind of in a flyer format, so it's really easy to put your eyes on, that we will forward in email as well as posting in the kiosks in places that the neighbors can see them. So we definitely want to share that information. Eric, you had a question?
Yeah, thank you. So as part of the settlement, is Chevron required to do anything above and beyond regulatory requirements at the source where the emissions are coming from, or is this cap strictly for the community? Or can some of the recommendations, I guess, be pointed back towards Chevron to control their emissions at the source rather than
So
protecting ourselves from what's coming from the source?
yeah, that's a good question. As I understand it right now, Chevron is open to any and all recommendations.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm. I can't promise what actually happens, right? But I know that we have right now creative power to at least bring all of our best and most creative and even out of the box thinking back to Chevron as it stands.
Peter?
Yes, it said that Chevron only invited one person to this meeting, or reached out for one person to this meeting. Do you know who that was?
I misspoke. Do you mean to the upcoming meeting that so Philip and Chevron and I have been in discussions to make sure that Point Richmond, obviously a very key
Yeah.
neighborhood in this project, is represented. As of right now, it is folks who are representing the neighborhood councils are the presidents. We do have community-based organizations present, but Chevron has reached out directly to Philip to participate. But the town hall, of
Point
course,
Richmond,
everybody can come.
Point Richmond will be the fifth neighborhood council, and I think that they're largely
Fifth or sixth.
geographically close. And Peter, this happened today. So I will also be approaching other members of my board. So if that's something that interests you and you would like to take that role, we can talk about it. What we're waiting from Chevron is exactly what is expected of that role. So you know how many meetings, when they're going to be, because there are and I do want to throw some credit in your direction, Ms. Canfield. They have you really roller skating with the timeline. I mean, usually you would have this much time just to plan the first meeting, much
Yeah.
yet do the whole thing. So I understand you're juggling, but I will reach out to the board to see if there's someone who has particular interest. Peter was our previous president for 4 years, so he has a lot of experience. I just need to know, I don't want anyone to sign up for something they can't fulfill. So because the time is so limited. So Peter, I'll reach out to you if you're interested in that. But there is only one member of each neighborhood council that's represented on that board.
Okay.
So
Yes.
there'll be a total of 5 of us. Lisa?
So I just had 2 questions. One is, will the person who's appointed have an alternate? So in the event that the appointed person doesn't have an alternate, so say if Philip or Peter both wanted to be on it, it'd be good to have an alternate.
Yeah.
And number
Good
2
question.
is, I know that the settlement fund, the Bay Area Air Quality, my understanding, they are supposed to be the ones that appoint the community advisory body that will oversee the implementation of the fine settlement portion. So is there going to be any interface? I know Chevron has no say over that money, and the city council has no say over that money, and it's going to be all impacted neighborhoods, including North Richmond from the county and San Pablo, in addition to Richmond. So will there be any interfacing at all between this cap and I'm going to call it the CAB for cap?
Yeah.
Will there be any interaction so that so one group is aware of what the other group is kind of thinking and working on and how that would interplay? Because I think that would be critical.
Yes. So what we did talk about at that first meeting was the needs for the left hand to know what the right hand is doing, essentially. And so that we have organizing efforts that understand how to support one another's ideas, agendas. And so, yes, we are hoping and we are planning for both parties to know and collaborate on efforts where possible and necessary. As far as your first question, yeah, so we are, this governing body or this body is still very, very new. We don't know yet how frequently we're meeting. We don't know who, what is the structure of the committee yet. There's still a lot of room for, I know, you missed the first meeting, Philip, but there's still so much room for you all to bring your ideas and to bring your experience and how you think the committee should be structured and what the governing body and rules and regulations should look like. And so I think alternates are a wonderful idea. I think they're essential. We don't want any voices lost. And that's something I think that Philip and I and Kirby, when she's back, can certainly discuss and bring up even at the next meeting.
And why this becomes also important is because the CAB for the Bay Area Air Quality, right? When I know there was one community meeting a while ago and that involved, and there was a lot of input where the community wanted neighborhood councils to be part of the CAB. So, and how that money would get distributed and implemented into what sorts of programs, where do the communities want to see that? And they're the best organizations for neighborhoods right now is neighborhood councils. Mm-hmm. And so John Joya is fully aware and recognize that neighborhood councils should be part of the CAB. So that's what I'm kind of saying. If neighborhood councils are part of the CAP and they're part of the CAB, if there needs to be any kind of communication or firewall in some instance, if Chevron is supposed to be not in the loop of what's going on with the CAB, that's where I think there's difficulty here, right? Okay. So I just think it needs to be really clear, like, is there going to be independent people on the neighborhood councils with the CAB versus the CAP? Mm-hmm. How that interplays, because I can see where people might have concerns about that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I really appreciate you bringing that up. I didn't know that there was a push for neighborhood councils to be on the CAB. So I'm also still learning the lay of the land. And I think that that's something, Philip, if you can come, or Peter, if you can come to the meeting on September 13th, we can talk about that. I think right now for the upcoming meeting, it's really to try to get the outline and a preliminary draft of the community action plan ready for the October 16th meeting. What I didn't get a second to say was that, yes, we had to throw this committee together pretty quickly. We signed a contract in June and July, and here we are, in August and September planning for our first annual meeting. But there is an opportunity for this advisory committee to stay in this work for the next 5 years. And so there's going to need to be lots of discussions around how frequently do we meet, what is the voting structure. There's, again, lots to get done around just the advisory committee alone. Unfortunately, because time is so tight right now because of Chevron's timeline, we have to really focus on the community action plan. But I am making note, and whether whoever comes from North Point Richmond, I know will bring a wealth of experience and ideas on what the actual committee itself should look like too. And I'm telling you, we are very open to any and all ideas at this point still.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Edie.
I was just curious, will you be releasing a list of the neighborhoods and or the names of the people that will be on this CAP board when it's finalized?
I don't see why not. Again, this is in the spirit of transparency that we're pushing for Chevron to hold itself to. I don't see why that would be an issue.
Yeah, I think it's particularly important for all neighborhoods because this is about, the community, that each neighborhood knows who its representative is so that they can find out more information and or provide their input.
Absolutely.
Thanks. That was a good question, Edie. Sally.
Okay, so I'm Sally Tobin, and I wonder if you might be able to help Richmond out with something that's related, but not precisely having to do with air pollution. And that has to do with sea level rise. Right now, Richmond, and I'm going to be going into this in more detail and issuing invitations to everybody at the end of the meeting under announcements. But Richmond is carrying out an inventory of contaminated sites, and they've also applied to the Ocean Protection Council for one of the grants to study the entire coastline of Richmond scientifically to figure out which adaptations are going to be most appropriate for which different areas. And we've been having some trouble finding an appropriate person at Chevron who can come to a community conversation that's scheduled for September 28th, who can talk, just give a very general 10-minute talk about what Chevron's plans are for sea level rise. And so and Lena Velasco has written to Chevron, but it may have been a more general inquiry and it may have gotten lost in the shuffle somehow. So if there's some way that either you or Dr. Lynch can help us find the appropriate person, that would be a huge help for us.
Absolutely. I'm happy. Oh,
Can I
Philip,
field? Sally, would you be willing to send that to me and then let me forward it to both you and Dr. Lynch? And then you can loop me out. And we do hear from the public relations people, but I talked to Chevron and Peter has been talking to Chevron for years. They answer our calls. So it sounds like it might need to be a scientist there and
Yeah,
not
that's what we're
a public
thinking. It's
relations
going to be
person.
basically a scientific, an introduction to the science of sea level rise.
But I can copy the SARES representatives and also Chevron and just forward that and then pull myself out.
Fabulous.
Happy to
Thank
do
you.
that.
and
Thank you.
I'm happy to see what I can do. I can't make any promises, but I know that we can pursue that on your behalf and see what we can do.
Fabulous. Thank you very much. Thank you
Of
both.
course.
Okay. Great, thanks, Sally. Well, part of it is they're trying to prove that they're willing to communicate. So let's let them put their money, no pun intended, their money where their mouth is.
Lots of money.
This was really scheduled to be a few minutes with Ms. Canfield. So I would like to find out if anyone has any last questions. I promise that we'll just update this as it progresses. Peter has already volunteered to sit on this board with me as his backup, but we just want to make sure that we absolutely can make the commitment. So as soon as we find out what the schedule looks like and what you'll be requiring, we'll find the best person on the PRNC board to do that. And then Edie is now made it pretty easy for us to send out polls. So, or to take votes electronically during these meetings. So we'll be able to send out, can we send out doodle polls, right, Edie? To the membership, or am I misspeaking?
Oops, sorry about that. The doodle polls are not realistic for large.
Okay.
But there are other ways that we can create polling that can be sent out.
So one of the things I'd like to be able to do instead of just call giant meetings is to actually send polls out to our hundreds of email recipients. And you can tell us what's most important. And then Peter or I can go back in these meetings and say, okay, folks want this kind of website, or folks want postcards or clowns or whatever it is. So I want to thank you very much for the generous amount of time. I know it was only supposed to be a few moments, and kind of bringing back the veil of the 3 or 4 different settlements that the community is confused about. And we look forward, the PRNC looks forward to hearing from you, amplifying your message, and getting back to you with as accurate feedback from the community as possible.
Thank you so much. Thank you all for your time. We really appreciate it. We look forward to your input and partnering on this. I think we have an incredible opportunity and we want you all, involved. And so Philip, I will just follow up between tonight and tomorrow with the dates of all of the upcoming meetings, just so you have them. But I know that we'll be in communication.
Thank you so much. I'm really
Thank you.
grateful for you being here, and I can't imagine, as wonderful as the famous Dr. Lynch is, that she could have been a much more interesting or informative guest than
Oh,
you
thank
are. So
you. Thank you. I
we're
hope
happy
to
to
meet
see
her.
you.
I want to keep
Thank
my
you.
ranking. Okay, thank you all
I'll
so
put in
much.
a good word.
I appreciate it. You all have a wonderful evening. Thank you. Bye-bye.
All righty, so let's move on to our community briefs now. Let's see, CERT. I did see Kristen here before. Are you still with us, Kristen? We do hear from Charmaine, but she's traveling today. Christian was on for a second. No, going once, going twice. Point Richmond Business Association. Anybody want to tell us what's going on? And no. History Association. I see Bonnie Joe is here. Or was.
Bonnie
Bonnie
Joe.
Joe, can you unmute?
Now, can
We'll
you
go
hear?
back to,
I lost.
oh, there you are.
I lost you for a second. Yeah, I'm here.
Thank you, Bonnie Joe.
Okay, so I wanted you to know that we've mounted another plaque. This one is at 225 Clarence Street, which is the Dornan residence. The residence that Mid and Robert Dornan lived in for decades. This plaque was sponsored by Pat Dornan. It was one of Mid Dornan's last wishes that a plaque be mounted on their house. And so it was done. It's very handsome. It's at 225 Clarence Street. If anybody wants to go take a look at it, I encourage you to do that. The other news I have is that the Point Richmond History Association is partnering with the Richmond Library, Public Library, to sponsor a lecture series on wartime. The lectures will be held on the first Wednesday in October, November, December, and January. The first lecture is October the 2nd, and it will be given by Jim Davis. And the topic is the Italian Americans in World War II in the Richmond area. The lectures are being held at the community center at 6:30. And in the first lecture, Maya Taqueria will be offering food at the lecture and for a $15 donation. These are being organized. This whole lecture series was organized by one of our board members, Greg Brock. And we look forward to seeing everybody there. I want to thank Philip for putting us in touch with or suggesting that we contact Susan White at the public library, because that was a really great idea to partner with them. We will have flyers up, so you will learn more about the upcoming lectures, the ones in November, December, and January.
Thanks. And if you remember, Bonnie Joe, I'll try to remind you, send those dates to me so I can include it in the newsletter in September and people can mark their calendars.
Okay, we will have flyers up. We also have a big announcement in the upcoming This Point in Time newsletter. But yes, I will do that.
Okay, we may even have a mailing going out before then. I'm not sure. So the mailings are great, by the way, community organizations, because they do reach about over 3,000 people by mail.
You're talking about the public library?
No, we send the Point Richmond Neighborhood News.
Oh, okay.
So it does go to a lot of people, and we're always looking, to inform people of what everybody's doing. Margie is also out today. I think she and Charmaine are at a bachelorette party with a guy dressed as a fireman. I don't know. Is anyone from Arts Point Richmond want to fill us in? Eric, you shouldn't smile. You might be the guy dressed as a fireman for all we know. No, I don't see anyone from Arts at Point Richmond. I also, by the way, should just real quick thank Bonnie Joe. The History Association keeps being open when we have National Night Out and when we have events of every kind. And I'm thrilled that even though it faces Washington Avenue, people still find it and they still go in and they still learn. So, you know, it's very important for these organizations when we have these street events, come out and set up a table and just hang out and or we'll set one up for you, you know, so that you can introduce yourself to the community. Is Kate here? Magic Lantern? Everyone's on vacation? Okay, we're gonna move on. I don't see Layla. I think it has been officially announced that Pram is possibly changing its name to the Field House. So I think that's official. I hope so. If not, I just spoke. Never mind.
What are they changing the name to?
I think that's going to be to the Field House, which is the name of that
Field
building.
House.
That building is called the Washington Field House. So I think that they're restructuring and wanted to change the name in order to help them restructure their organization. But it doesn't affect the services that they offer. I do remind you, we're mostly older folks in this meeting, but if you have children or grandchildren, you can rent the pram inexpensively for half a day or a full day for your private birthday party. So it's really a very inexpensive way to throw a children's birthday party. Lisa, do you know anything going on in Brickyard Cove HOAs? We lost.
Really, the only
Oh.
thing is, I know the Terminal 1 development site and the city is supposed to start mediation in September. Like September 7th and 10th or something like that.
Legal mediation?
Yeah, that's the first step. So if they can't resolve it in mediation, then they sue.
So the developer's asking for the mediation.
That was part of the original contract.
I see. Okay, well, that's gonna
It's
be
like-
what?
It's a Friday and a Monday at the second day is, I think it's September 6th and 9th.
All righty. Next door would be a good place probably to find out a little bit about that. Now we have 5 minutes with Marcia Valier, who is here to tell us that next time we have more time with Marcia Valier. So Marcia is here to just update us at the request of the city manager on the pumping station at Brickyard Cove.
Yes, my name is Marcia Valier. I'm a landscape architect, and I now work for the firm CSWST2, and we're just right next door to Interactive Resources. What we're doing is, I just wanted to give you a very quick update. The city has Schaff and Wheeler, who is the consulting civil engineers. They are now under contract, and they're doing. If I can just share something really fast.
Sure, you have time.
So this is a very, very rough roadway design, and I've just put some color on it. And basically what we're looking to do is we're looking to do repairs to the existing Brickyard Cove Road and Dornan Drive. And this is the new lift station here. What we're going to be proposing to do is raising the wall. Right now it's 6 feet tall. We'd like to put CMU blocks up to 10 feet tall. The existing foundation will take that. And the gates would also be 10 feet tall. What I'm proposing to them is that we create a very smooth bay trail instead of having those weird kinks and the weird edges, 12-foot wide, very clean bay trail. We have to work more on it. And then instead of having very large driveways going in to the station, I've asked them if we could do turf block or something like that to narrow down what looks like just a big paved pad going around the curve. And so they've agreed that they will look at the turf block. What happens is when they're doing, every 5 years or whatever, they have to go in and change equipment and do things like that. So they need to have a driveway where they can get a crane in, but they don't need a driveway every single day. And so they've been amenable to putting in some type of turf block or some kind of, I was thinking about some native grasses and hydroseeding of that hillside in cooperation with East Bay Regional Parks District to hydroseed the disturbed area and then have it feel like that hydroseed is coming back down to the edge of the pump station. The other thing that I've asked them to do is to create a better turning radius, because right now you really can't see much going around that corner. And fire trucks can't get through. So this is a 27-foot radius along the corner, which is the inside turning radius of a fire truck. And then the outside dashed circle here is the 50-foot turning radius. So we've got room here. And we're looking at doing kind of low-level planting in front of the station. We've got a lot of utilities that are running through there. So I'm not really able to put large trees in there. And the other thing is, if in fact there is a settlement and the Terminal 1 development goes forward, you all have already blessed and looked at a different type of design. And so I'd like to get this so it's clean, it's screened, it's less impactful, and not spend a ton of money on it because it will be changed once the development comes in. So I'm trying to be practical, but I'm also trying to make sure it looks better and that I push a little bit to make it so it doesn't feel like there are these big, runways going in and through. So
Thank you.
that's my update.
And Marcia, I do see we have some questions. We didn't really plan for this to be a question and answer session.
Correct. I'm supposed to come back. I'm going to go to the land use committee as well as the neighborhood council at next month. And
right. So
this is just very preliminary and I don't want to get too far down the road. I still have the comments from our previous meetings that I'm incorporating as well. So I'm happy to answer, but I don't know if I have great answers.
Let's just ask Graham and Lisa we'll take your questions, but if the questions need to be answered at the LUDRC meeting or the longer presentation next month, we'll ask to hold those questions off because we need to announce these meetings so the general public understands that this is going to be discussed. The reason we invited Marcia is that the city manager asked Marcia to do an update. So, I thought the update was just going to be, I'll see you next month. So let's take a quick question.
Tell you what I'm thinking about it.
We have time for it, but let's just take a quick question from Graham. If it's better answered next month, that's the right answer. Graham?
Yes, thanks, Phil. Couple of things. I ran into Caesar the other day, and he was saying that there'd been some problem with the money for completing the pump station. I don't know whether you know anything about that. And the second one being is he was still a little unsure as to whether there was going to be a roof covering the pump itself. That's a fairly expensive piece of equipment. And unless it is properly secured, it will be looted very, very quickly. And so I would like to at least stress that the pump station itself, first of all, needs the higher wall, which you've said. And secondly, that it needs to be properly covered and secured to prevent any looting. And just on another thing, concerning the Keller Beach, I'd just like to stress that we're now going right back to the start again. That will include considering all alternatives. Everybody's going to be kept involved through regular meetings in the public relations company, and that the new consultant coming on to advise on the structure itself, that is going to be open to tender rather than having another coastline just being parachuted in on us. Thank you.
Thanks, Graham. Thanks for filling in my insufficient explanation earlier. Lisa, did you have a quick question?
Yeah, it touches on Graham's first. I wanted to know what the budget is that you've been given for this project.
The mute went away. I have been given $50,000 to do that small little landscape area and the turf block. And I think it's not bad because it doesn't have very many square feet. So I'm just making a lot of suggestions about making sure that the roadway is nice and clean, that we have the proper turning radiuses, we don't have site triangle issues and things like that. There will be other funding for the Bay Trail, for the road repairs, for other things like that. But my portion is only 50,000 for very small landscape area.
I want to throw you a bone, Marcia. I just did the area between the sidewalk and the street in my single family home. And I spent almost $4,000 just on stone and metal. So $50,000 to do a big public works project will be a miracle that I'm sure you will pull off. All right, so we will be announcing the LUDRC meeting that you'll attend before the PRNC meeting next month, so people can zoom in and ask more questions. And then, as always, Marcia will then step in with the LUDRC and give kind of a synopsis, and then the community will vote to support her plan or not support her plan. And I'm pretty suspect that Marcia's going to make a silk purse out of a sow's ear. So, but if you do want to learn more about that, the LUDRC meeting will be a good thing to attend.
And thank you for your patience on this. It's been an interesting contracting process, trying to get everybody up to speed. So thank you for your patience on behalf of the city manager. So
Thanks. I'll give her a little note saying thanks for sending you over. So, and thank you for coming. It's always nice to see you.
You too.
I want to just mention that a lot of you know about the signage project and the fundraising that's going with it. Marcia's firm has donated thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars worth of expertise and artwork to develop that, and is going to see us all the way through to the end. So it is a real community service. It would have been a shame for us to spend all the money developing the thing or lose money developing something that was intended to raise money. So, and I'll send some more information about that. Fran, are you going to fill us in on the maskers? We seem to have lost Fran too. Okay, so everybody is tired. Are you there, Fran?
I see her logged in, but she's been logged in various ways. So it may be that she's having issues.
Oh, there's Fran, and she's freezing right now. Well, her screen is frozen. We'll go back to her if she and Cordell, who are apparently side by side, decide to join us. Cordell's on the same computer, so we'll skip over, see if we can get them back. Gary and Marin are out of town, but I did want to point out that for those of you who have not seen it, there's a gazebo or a trellis, I guess is best called, a little bit of both, that is now at the entrance to the plunge along the fence line. And it is beautiful. It's got some benches in the shade for people to sit, and it prominently has now named officially the Hurlbut tennis gardens. So for those of you who are unaware, because they are so humble, those gardens exist almost entirely because of the generosity of the Hurlbuts and their foundations. So including the ongoing gardening that you see, when you see teams of gardeners there, they are hired by the Hurlbuts, and then the city helps. So it is one of the most well-deserved little signage memorials I think we can find in our community. And now we're back to Graham again to talk about the Red Oak victory. And I know movies are coming, I think. You're on mute, Graham.
Hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks, Phil. Well, as usual, we're open for our regular summer hours on Sundays, 10 o'clock and 4 o'clock, for our 3 ranges of tours. Self-guided is still $10 to have a docent, $15. And I know it's a lot of money, but if you pay $20, we take you down into the engine room, and we will allow you, if you're lucky, to try and take the escape hatch at the stern, where you go up vertically for about 85 steps on a ladder. Not recommended for most of the current attendees. However, our next big event is on a pancake breakfast on September the 15th. It is Hawaiian themed, 9 o'clock until 12:30. We have the Alcatraz Islanders playing swing music from the 1940s. The pancakes themselves are $15 for adults and $5 for children. So please join us on that. Then, of course, on Fleet Week, October the 13th, we'll be having our regular Fleet Week pancake breakfast. In the meantime, Phil, for you, our next movie is September the 19th. Great movie, actually. It's Saving Private Ryan. Ship opens at 6, movie will start at 6:30. If you can spare us $10, we will be most appreciative. So please join us on September the 19th, September the 15th, and September the 19th. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Graham. Let's see. Do we still, okay, we still are Fran and Cordell-less. Is Doreen still here? Or do we lose her? Wow, we're moving so quickly through the summer vacation season. Doreen Layton is the new president of Women's West Side. So that's information. The gardens look better than ever. You may have noticed the PRNC has been working with them with grant money from the Gateway Foundation. We were planting trees in the town triangle in those naked squares. We're going to cover those squares with some type of eco-friendly mulch or covering of some kind. And there's a very good chance we've just been discussing planting agapanthus in those squares because they take almost no water and they will fill up those squares and maybe keep some inconsiderate dog owners from using those squares and add a little
Philip,
green to the sidewalk.
Philip.
Yeah, so you back, Fran?
Well,
Yeah,
Cordell has managed to get me able to talk, but I
so
think
I got the we got the reports from the Maskers and RNCC. So I'll let Fran.
It's all about the two of you.
Right.
no, it's about Thursday, August 15th. We had 184 people there to watch South Pacific. It was very good opening night. I didn't go back. I like to go back to see 2 or 3 of them, but that was wonderful. Maskers will have September 6th, God of Courage, and it starts at 8 p.m. And I invite you all to come down and just push through the doors. If they don't let you in, I'll approve you. Okay.
Right. And from the RNCC perspective, we had a small number of people. So we had 5 on the dais, 13 on Zoom, and myself and Interim Chief Smith. We were in the audience. So we didn't have no reports. We didn't have no presenters, nor the fire chief gave us his report. And so it was all in all a pretty good turnout. But under new business, we talked about I suggested to the board to have invite a couple of speakers to come to a future meeting to tell us about their one of their organizations and the other about the port. So our next regular meeting will be September the 16th. We normally meet the second Monday, but it's a holiday. But since it's a Missions Day, so it'll be at 7 p.m. in the council chambers, and that's it.
Thank you. Yeah, there's a lot going on in the port, and we're hoping to have them maybe in the winter,
Okay.
to find out what's going on. So that's a good catch, Cordell. Thank you for that report. Peter? You're muted. Still muted.
How about now?
Perfect.
Okay, between a couple of health issues, I kind of took a few weekends off with ping pong, but I started showing up again. And last week we had about 12 people. Half of them were people I'd never seen before showed up. And this last Monday, we probably had 8 people. And so it's still pretty popular. This is ping pong at the Point San Pablo Yacht Club on Cutting on Mondays from 5 till whenever people want to leave. No charge. And it's a nice social event as well as ping pong. So everybody's encouraged to come. You don't have to be any good. If you are good, turns out I can, even with a bum hand, I can actually still play. I just can't play very long. But we have a couple decent players too, so it's worthwhile. Also, as long as I've got the floor, this coming Sunday is our little car show. This is behind the Baltic, the parking lot. It's I think it's from 11 till 2. And it's called the Barbecue, but it's basically cars and coffee. Everybody's welcome. Bring whatever you're driving. It's a lot of fun. Okay, that's it.
Thanks for the update, Peter. And Jim is away today, so we do know that he's doing the lecture series with the History Association and our fabulous librarian, who is a lot of what the librarian is doing is using her access to the community center to allow community groups to try to incorporate our programs under her umbrella. And I'm grateful for it. I could never have imagined anyone could be as community oriented as Susan White. She's the first one to jump in on any community activity. So I'm really happy to hear that. We're moving on to public forum. I know that Sally, if you're still here, wanted to talk about something.
And I have something to say too.
Oh, of course, I assume that. Cordell, you always have input. Hi, Sally, you're back. You're on mute, Sally.
Unmute. Okay. Thank you very much, and thank you for not making me follow Cordell. I would like to invite everybody to come to a program about sea level rise that will be presented in a hybrid format in both in person in the city council chambers and also available on Zoom, and it will be recorded and posted afterwards. The title for this one session is Adapting Richmond's Shoreline and Its Industrial Legacy, a community conversation on building a resilient future. And so we're in the middle of inviting speakers. John Joya is talking. Eduardo Martinez is opening the meeting. This is basically a program that involves two coordinating initiatives, one of which is the one that Gail McLaughlin proposed last summer that was unanimously passed by the city council, which was to create an inventory of contaminated sites, including sites that had not yet been identified in Richmond. And the other has to do with funding that we hope we will be receiving from the Ocean Protection Council. They will be having the meeting where they will be making funding decisions on September 10th. So we're hoping that we do well in what they call a quote non-competitive unquote grant program, which means you have to meet certain standards. So we'll find out whether we met their standards or not. So this is a program to introduce the community to the science behind sea level rise and sea level rise adaptations, and laying the groundwork for Richmond to be able to choose the very best adaptations possible for every foot of the Richmond shoreline. Thank you.
Thanks, Sally. Sally, do you know how much shoreline we have off the top of your head, ish?
32 miles.
Yeah,
more than any other city in the Bay Area.
Is it September 10th? Is that it?
So, Sally, what's the date on that?
32 miles.
The date.
Oh, the date. I'm sorry. September 28th. It'll be 1:30 to about 4:30. There'll be 2 sessions and a coffee break in between.
Okay, thank you.
Did she say where?
She says in the council chambers?
City council chambers.
Okay.
I thought so.
Thank you. Cordell, did you have a comment?
Yes, I just remembered the there was an announcement I forgot to mention before. So I was thinking that if possible, either next month or October, we would like to have Daniel Chavarria and his deputies to come to tell us about what's going on with like the infrastructure, like the master plan list. Because when I was at the RNCC back in May, it came across to me, and I said we could have Daniel come and talk to us about some of the projects that they're working on, like the master plan. So besides, we paying his salary, so I'm thinking that like it'd be a great idea to have him come and like to tell us about the master plan and what's on the list of projects that they're working on. So it was just a thought that occurred to me. And oh yes, I did. I was going to invite the PRNC to the Richmond Chamber of Commerce's annual gala on October the 4th at 5:30 at Riggers Law, and the tickets are $100 a person. That includes champagne. What else? Maybe some caviar, and what else?
We hope some food.
That too. There'll be some food. So hopefully you will attend, and it's their 100th anniversary for the Richmond Chamber of Commerce. So I had this. I didn't go to the Best of Richmond event this evening. I was like, it's PRNC, so I have to participate on that one. So, and it was only $40 at the courtyard.
Cordell, do you know if there's a speaker for the Chamber of Commerce event?
Oh no, it's no speaker. It's gonna be everyone's invited. So hopefully we get a good turnout. For $100 a ticket, shoot, that ain't bad.
Yeah, but I've gone to some very interesting meetings over at Riggers Loft with them. Okay, any other public forums? New residents or businesses who would like to introduce themselves? Any new folks who want to introduce themselves? We definitely see new faces, but you don't have to. Okay. I would like to personally add to the remembrance and celebration by celebrating the 90th birthday of Miss Fran Smith, who I saw photos of her dressed as a queen. She has been an active member of our community for over 60 years.
And just turned 90, and now how many days? 13 days, 90 years and 13 days.
Oh my goodness.
Well, I can top that. I just remembered that I came to the PRNC back then in 2014. And I'm like, this is my milestone too. It's been 10 years, and I'm like, wow, August 27th. Wow.
Okay.
I'm glad that you've been with us 10 years, but I'm sorry, it doesn't really beat Fran's 90th birthday. But in 80 more years, you can steal her thunder.
Okay.
I was the one that was there for when Margaret was with RNCC at the time.
Yep. But we are grateful for your 10 years, and we are very grateful for your decades of service, Fran, and that you're still going strong. I just adore you, and I'm so glad whenever I see your face. Does anybody else have any remembrance or something?
I wanted to just share a happy birthday to Fran, but also to say I'm so glad we've come here because I'm meeting all these women who look fabulous at 85 and 90. There is something in the air. Maybe it's the chemicals. I don't know. But in Point Richmond, the women look great into their 90s. So it gives me hope.
Yeah, it's the preservatives from
It's the preservatives.
Chevron.
Oh, Chevron.
They pickled us.
We can't breathe, but our skin is
You
moist.
look fabulous.
All right. Well, we actually managed to hear quite a bit about the Chevron project and a little more than anticipated from Marcia Valier, and 25 minutes early. So even though people came and went, and we have a smaller crowd than usual during summer vacation. I want to thank everybody for joining us. Next meeting is the last Wednesday of next month, same time, same place. And just FYI, as we work out the glitches in our new system, the link to get into these Zoom meetings for our meetings on the last Wednesday, is now the same every month. So it's a standing meeting. And if you, for whatever reason, you have a little trouble finding it,
Yeah.
last time's meeting is the same as this one. So thanks again, Edie, for bringing your administrative skill to our otherwise well-intended but slightly sometimes administratively challenged group. I'm grateful for having you as neighbors. I'm grateful that you came today, and we'll do the best to have an interesting meeting for you this time next month. Good night, everybody, and thank you, Edie.
Thank you. Take care, everybody. Be well.
Hi, Sue.